Should the Broncos trade for Roquan Smith? That is the topic of today's Broncos Breakdown. I am your host, Matthew Peterson, and we all woke up to some pretty big NFL news today as Roquan Smith, a star linebacker for the Chicago Bears, made a request to be traded. So, we're going to break down why the Broncos, in my opinion, should be trading for Roquan Smith, but we're also going to look at 3 key reasons why George Paton ultimately might not pull the trigger on another blockbuster trade this offseason. So, like I mentioned, this morning, Roquan Smith made a request to be traded after contract negotiations sort of stalled. He said that the Bears did not give him what he was even really close to looking for, felt it was not in good faith, and now we've got an interesting trade idea out there of a star player potentially being on the move. So, the Broncos, in my opinion, would have to clear some cap space, okay? Not in my opinion, that's a fact. They've got about $8-ish million in cap room, and the whatever team takes on Roquan Smith's contract would be inheriting about a $9 million salary cap hit there. George Paton probably not all that interested in giving Roquan that big contract extension that he's looking for right now from the Bears. Here's my take on all this. I would trade for Roquan Smith for the right price, meaning you only have 2 third-round picks in the upcoming draft. If you lose both of those picks, you're not going to have anything until round 4 or 5, whatever it is. Worked for the Rams last year. They didn't have a first, second, or third. If you don't win a Super Bowl, though, oh bad. Oh boy. Like, how bad is it going to look here? Now, I think Smith would complete this Broncos defense on all 3 levels, right? Pass rush-wise, you've got Chubb, you've got Gregory. Run stopping, you've got DJ Jones. Linebacker is where you're looking around a little bit going, we hope Jonas Griffith or Alex Singleton can make a big step this year. Josey Jewell rebounds from an injury last season. Secondary, you're stacked. Surtain and Simmons, they are the real deal. There's no doubt about it. I would trade for Roquan Smith. I would. I know that GMs are going a little bit sour on the idea of investing a lot for run-stopping players when teams are passing more than ever, but Roquan is the exception, and I'll explain why in more detail. But let me know what you guys think. Should the Broncos trade for Roquan Smith? Drop a Y for yes or an N for no down in the comments section. I want to know what you guys have to say about the idea of trading for one of the best off-ball linebackers in football. Here are 3 big arguments for a trade to bring Roquan to Mile High. The Broncos have a clear need at inside linebacker. That's probably the most important box you have to check whenever you want to entertain the idea of trading for someone. Do we have a need? Yep. All right, let's move on to the next step of this flow chart here. There is an idea or a bit of a stigma of, hey, should we really be looking into trading for inside linebackers? Their value's kind of going down. They are becoming the running back of the defense where you could just draft a replacement every 4 to 5 years. Roquan's the exception, in my opinion. He is in that top 5 level with Shaquille Leonard, not Darius, Shaquille Leonard, Fred Warner, C.J. Mosley. He is one of those guys, okay? He is the exception to the idea of drafting a replacement every couple of seasons. Finally, this defense is already on the cusp of being underrated maybe and not getting enough appreciation, but Roquan, a new leader, would just push it over the edge, right? You add Roquan, and we'll look at a potential defense with Roquan Smith in it. It is dirty, especially when you take into account what he's done so far in his career. Like I said, he has been one of the best linebackers in football. Top 10 draft pick for the Bears back in 2018, and he has been a producer and a contributor ever since then. I mean, his rookie season, he was one of the best linebackers in football, period. 5 sacks as a rookie, missed some time in his 2019 campaign, but 2020 and 2021, he played every single game and essentially every single snap for the Chicago Bears. He was the only consistent thing for the Bears defense last year down the stretch. He's the best player on their roster. He is that guy, okay? I don't think he gets enough credit and recognition for how good of a player he is. Now we look at the depth chart here for the Broncos at inside linebacker. And my God, I mean, if you added Roquan to this room, this defense is scary. I mean, no offense to Josey Jewell or Alex Singleton or Jonas Griffith, but those are not even close to the Roquan Smith level of play. I mean, this defense would be insane. Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory, hopefully healthy all season long. If not, you still got guys like Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Malik Reed for crying out loud. You add Roquan Smith, and then you look at the secondary with PS2 and Justin Simmons. This is one of the best defenses in the NFL. So with that in mind, what pick would you give up for Roquan Smith? Because there is something to be said, and we'll look at some of the reasons against trading for Roquan, but it wouldn't be fair, it would feel like. I mean, it would be the exception of, yeah, and I've talked about before, you don't want to have no picks for next year's draft, but getting Roquan, my God, would be it would be more than cherry on top. It would be a whole new dessert, essentially. There are 3 key reasons that may prohibit a trade. The first one, Roquan wants to become one of the highest paid linebackers. That's the whole reason this trade is potentially going to go down, is that new GM in Chicago, Ryan Poles, doesn't want to invest a ton of money into, being a 25-year-old player, still super young, but nevertheless, he doesn't want to put a ton of capital into a position that isn't viewed like it used to be. These are the highest paid off-ball linebackers on average through the in the NFL. Shaquille Leonard, not Darius, number 1. He just got that bag not long ago. Fred Warner, C.J. Mosley, Zach Cunningham, and Deion Jones. Roquan wants to be top 5. He's probably looking just shy of Leonard, right in that $19 million range. And that is a lot of money for a position that isn't what it used to be. But still, Roquan, like I said, is the exception in my opinion. He is the guy you break the rule for because he is that talented and he brings that much to a team. Now, we've got more analysis to get to in just a moment, but if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, I've got 3 simple reasons why you should. We have 100% free Broncos content. You never have to pay. There's no paywall or anything like that. We are one of the fastest growing Broncos YouTube communities out there, nearly 9,000 strong, so join us here. Plus, if you hate the Chiefs or the Raiders, that's good enough by me to hit that subscribe button and join us today. A big reason why a trade might not go down or why the Broncos might not be on the receiving end is they are a little bit short draft capital. Now, I don't think Roquan Smith goes for a first. He definitely doesn't go for a first. I don't think he goes for a second. So the Broncos theoretically do have what the Bears could be asking for in a 3rd-round pick, which they do have 2 of, and another day 3 pick, a 4th or a 5th, okay? I think ultimately, if a Roquan Smith trade does go down, it's going to look something like this. This is sort of a template, a rough draft, a 3rd-round pick, and a future 5th. That's just the day and age we live in terms of how inside linebackers are looked at and perceived. You're not seeing them fly off the board, really, in round 1 like they used to before, okay? Round 2, teams are looking for pass rushers. They want to sack the quarterback. They are content with maybe giving up some chunk change in the run game if they can slow teams down through the air. So I think a 3rd and a 5th is most likely what the Bears get. I might be underselling Roquan. He's worth more than that. It's just that's what the market is for linebackers this day and age. Now, we've got another big reason why a trade might not happen to look at in just a second. But I want to tell everyone about BetUS because football is not back. It's almost back. Football's back week 1, Monday Night Football against the Seahawks. But that doesn't mean you can't start getting your gambling on when you go to BetUS, where they are offering Broncos Country a 125% deposit bonus for going to chatsports.com/bet. Using promo code Broncos125, you put 100 buckaroos in, you're going to get 125 additional dollars to spend. So now you got 225 to play with. And here are some interesting bets you could make. Like AFC West odds over on BetUS. The Broncos are plus 250, which means in English, if you bet $100 and they win the division, you are going to win $250. Pretty good odds right there. Pretty good return for a team that's got Russell Wilson as its quarterback. So I'm definitely going to put some cheddar on that. I invite you to join me over at chatsports.com/bet. Got to use that link with the promo code Broncos125. Probably the biggest kicker in stopping a Roquan Smith trade to Denver is George Paton has shown he does not value inside linebacker all that much. Now, he's only been the GM for 2 years, so it's really hard to say anything from 2 years is a pattern, but we are starting to see what his mindset is as to what he wants to put resources in. All right, let's look at some notes from George Paton as GM of the Denver Broncos. He opted only to re-sign Josey Jewell this offseason, not bring back A.J. Johnson. Instead, he went Alex Singleton, and he's kind of banking on Jonas Griffith panning out and looking like maybe a starting linebacker. He looked great down the stretch last year. Haven't seen it for a whole season, though. The Broncos did not draft an inside linebacker, despite that being a bit of a need here, okay? NFL GMs across the board, they're just not looking at linebackers like they used to before, all right? Teams are looking at pass rushers, and what they're basically betting on is saying, hey, we're going to get elite pass rushers who also can help in the run, but we are daring you to run the football and put the ball on the ground where we've got Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory just 3 feet away. That is their bet to other teams' offenses. And it's not a bad bet to make right there when you've got such talented players coming off the edge. They're just knowing that teams are not running the football first and second down and passing on third. They are passing 2 out of 3 downs. So why put in a big resource into a position that's quietly declining? But like I said, there are exceptions. Roquan, in my opinion, is that exception. Now, speaking of George Paton, we had a bit of an office debate here this morning about how he's done so far as the GM, and I need you guys to back me up. He has done a phenomenal job as the leader of this organization. So spam A if you think Paton has done a fantastic job as the GM so far. I understand he did not go QB with the 9th overall pick in 2020, but worked out pretty well, or 2021, whatever, 2021 with Patrick Surtain. So let me know what you would grade George Paton down below. I also think it is important to note that George had an opportunity to draft some inside linebackers this past draft class. Some pretty highly touted ones too. And he passed on a lot of them. I mean, so let's rewind, right? 64th overall, they go Nick Benito, Asamoah, and Chad Muma, and Christian Harris, all still on the board, all right? Then he gets picked again at 80, and he goes Greg Dulcich, ahead of Nakobe Dean, Channing Tindall, and even other players that were still, Leo Chenal, the Wisconsin linebacker we talked a lot about. He didn't get picked until 103. So there were 2 opportunities for Paton to draft one of these coveted inside linebackers. He opted not to do it. So does he want to trade a 3rd-round pick away for a linebacker when he could have just drafted one, younger, but Roquan's only 25, and have him under control for cheaper for longer than giving Roquan Smith the bag, right? That doesn't really help the idea of the Broncos having much interest in trading a 3rd-round pick for a linebacker and also making him one of the top 5 highest paid off-ball linebackers in football. I think there are exceptions. That's really the key word of the day, exception, because that's what Roquan Smith is. He is that talented. You have a chart, you have your rules, but you break them when Roquan Smith comes on the board. Roquan Smith on this defense would be incredible. Just think about it this way. If you get a notification the Broncos have traded for Roquan Smith, your first reaction is not going to be, dang it, I really wanted that 3rd-round pick in 2024. No. You're going to be like, Roquan is worth it. He is that good. He is that talented of a defender, of a linebacker, and he will push this defense over the edge and make them even more competitive in the AFC West to help slow down Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr. That's my TED Talk on why the Broncos should trade for Roquan Smith. All right, before we get on out of here, I made a promise yesterday that if you commented "Let's Ride" down below, we would be giving shout-outs to end the show. So Nate Williams, of course, a Hall of Famer in the Broncos Breakdown comment section, along with Jay Hogg, Eric, the new guy, Victor, Jack Attack, Ton, I hope I pronounced that right, Aaron Gonzalez, a frequent commenter as well, Paul, Anna's neighbor, I don't even know what that means, and Octavio Rodriguez, another MVP of the comments section. Appreciate all of you guys for putting down the Let's Ride in the comments, and hey, we'll drop another one. Broncos Country, Let's Ride. Comment that down below if you have made it to the end of today's video.